It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Little Rock Sustainability Hour, brought to you by the Little Rock Sustainability Commission. Today we will discuss sustainability in and around Little Rock. Our goal is to educate and inform you on how we can all become better stewards of the community and city we live in.
Hi everyone, thank you for listening to the Little Rock Sustainability Hour here in the city of Little Rock. I am your host, Karen Zucardi, and I hope you are learning new and interesting things with us. I am also the chair of the Sustainability Commission, and it is my pleasure to bring you the content of this show every week. Every show is the result of a lot of hard work, but work that we believe matters. It matters because we, like you, love Little Rock and want to see it become even more beautiful. But what does having a better city look like? How do we get there? What are our responsibilities and our rights as residents of Little Rock? Stay with us because we will share with you great information to help you answer those questions and many more. Today, we are going to talk about a very serious subject, a subject that has affected many of us in one way or another at some point of our lives. Today, we are going to be talking about food insecurity, what this means to our kids, family, and community in general. We will also share with you resources you can use if you need assistance, and finally, we will share some suggestions about how you can help. Before we get into today's show, I want to remind everyone how the Commission is structured. The Little Rock Sustainability Commission has 5 working teams. They are energy, education and community outreach, transportation, waste and reduction, and environment, health, and wellness. If you are interested in any of these subjects, I invite you to get involved. Every month, these teams get together to discuss in more depth their specific subjects. Residents of Little Rock come to these meetings and provide insight to the commissioners. Then the commissioners bring these ideas to the commission, and the commission tries to work it in a way that we can help push your initiatives forward. Your ideas are important. They matter, and we encourage you to share them with us. You can also reach out to the Sustainability Office at recycled@littlerock.gov. Also, please don't forget to follow us on social media. Sustain Little Rock is on Facebook and Instagram. We share valuable information for the Little Rock community on our social media platforms. You can use hashtags such as LRSH, LRSC, SustainLR, and UniteLR. So now, let's welcome our beautiful Latino community. Hola, querida comunidad latina. Muchas gracias por sintonizar una vez más la hora de sostenibilidad aquí en la ciudad de Little Rock. Hoy vamos a hablar de un tema que es muy serio, preocupante y para muchas personas su realidad diaria. Hoy vamos a hablar de la inseguridad alimentaria. Juntos vamos a aprender un poco más de este tema y también vamos a dar ideas a dónde ir si necesitas ayuda para alimentar a tu familia y también de cómo ayudar a nuestra linda comunidad. Food insecurity is a problem that many families experience, though it is often a subject people don't want to talk about. People suffer in silence the struggle of not being able to feed their families. If you are going through a difficult time right now and you are finding it difficult to figure out where your family's next meal will come from, I want to tell you, you are not alone. No father, mother, or kid should feel ashamed for the lack of food security in their lives. We hope that this show gives a safe space to our community to talk about food insecurity and ideas of where to go and what to do if you or anyone you know needs some help. Throughout this show, there may be some terminology that you may be unfamiliar with. Let's define them real quick. Food insecurity. The USA Department of Agriculture, or USDA, defines food insecurity as a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life. It is important to know that though hunger and food insecurity are closely related, there are different concepts. Hunger refers to a personal physical sensation of discomfort, while food insecurity refers to a lack of available financial resources for food at the household level. Food deserts. Food deserts can be described as geographic areas where residents' access to affordable, healthy foods, especially fresh fruits and vegetables, is restricted or non-existent due to the absence of grocery stores within convenient traveling distance. The other defining characteristic of food deserts is socioeconomic. That is, they are mostly or they are commonly found in Black and Brown communities and low-income areas where many people don't have cars. Studies have found that wealthy districts have 3 times as many supermarkets as poor ones do. People's choices about what to eat are severely limited by the options available to them and what they can afford. And many food deserts contain an overabundance of fast food chains selling highly processed foods and dairy-based foods that are high in fat, sugar, and salt. Also, let's understand real quick what malnutrition means. Malnutrition is a condition that results from nutrient deficiency or overconsumption. There are 2 types of malnutrition. The first one is undernutrition. This type of malnutrition results from not getting enough protein, calories, or nutrients. And this one leads to low weight for the height, low height for the age, and also low weight for the age. Then the second one is overnutrition. This one comes from overconsumption of certain nutrients, such as protein, calories, or fat. And although some people think that this is not malnutrition, this leads to this issue. It usually results in overweight or obesity. It is possible to be overweight or obese from excessive calorie consumption, but not get enough vitamins and minerals at the same time. That's because foods that contribute to overnutrition, such as fried and sugary foods, tend to be high in calories and fats, but low in other nutrients. So, well, now that we are familiar with some important terms about today's show, let's get started. Talking about food insecurity is talking about an uncomfortable reality. Having access to healthy foods is the most basic fiber of any community. The consequences of this problem affect many aspects of the lives of the people who struggle with a steady access to healthy foods. People who suffer the reality of food insecurity are often faced with tough decisions and devastating consequences. People often have to decide between feeding their families or pay for utilities, rent, transportation, or medical care. The lack of enough financial resources also forces people to stretch their money by purchasing inexpensive and unhealthy foods. Food insecurity is a complex problem with many overlapping issues like lack of affordable housing, high medical costs, and social isolation. Although food insecurity may be long-term or temporary, the individual and collective consequences of this problem can be felt in our community in many ways. Some of the consequences are higher chances of developing health issues, a decrease of life expectancy quality, and feeling disenfranchised in our community. In kids, food insecurity can increase behavioral problems and lack of ability to learn as fast as their peers. The pandemic has unfortunately worsened the problem of food insecurity by a lot. Feeding America, the largest hunger relief organization in the United States, estimates that 17 million people in the country could become food insecure because of the pandemic, bringing the total to more than 54 million people in the country, including 18 million children. Before COVID-19, food insecurity was at its lowest since the Great Recession, but it still impacted 37 million people. The reason of this dramatic increase of food insecurity might be obvious, but here are some of them. People are losing their jobs at a dramatic pace. Families who lived from paycheck to paycheck now are turning to food banks to feed their families. And thousands of kids of low-income families used to receive their meals at school, but the pandemic has forced us to close schools, meaning that those 2 or sometimes 3 meals a day that these kids received are no longer there. High-risk groups like older people are not able to leave their homes as often as they did before the pandemic. Something as simple as a trip to a grocery store could be deadly for them. As you can imagine, Little Rock is not immune to this issue. Our entire city has been affected by this awful crisis, but as with many issues, low-income families are the ones hit the hardest. I had the opportunity to talk to Lucretia Wise, who is the property manager at Fred Paris Towers. Lucretia told us that before the pandemic, churches, restaurants, and bakeries used to provide leftover food to low-income families, but the pandemic has created so much fear that many of these organizations no longer provide this needed service. The more we dig into this problem, the more we understand its complexity, and the more we realize the importance of helping each other. Food insecurity is a problem that we cannot ignore. Even if we have not personally struggled to feed our families, chances are that you can empathize with this issue. Due to the pandemic, 1 out of every 5 American families will go to bed hungry tonight, while the country also copes with another difficult reality, which is food waste. Food waste is a very complex problem in America and goes far beyond just tossing our leftovers in the trash. The country wastes between 30 and 40% of the food supply each year. This in and of itself represents a major environmental and financial problem, but it also highlights the irony of our system. While some kids go to bed hungry, tons of foods and produce are being dumped into our landfills. We will talk about this a little bit more with our guest tonight. All right, well, now it's time for one of my favorite sections of the show, our roundtable. I like this section because we are able to provide a space for our community to come and share with us important information about important subjects for our community. These are issues that we care about.
All right, so now Lenny Massanelli will read the bios of this episode's guest. Hi, Lenny, welcome back.
Hi, Karen. Our first guest is Director Kathy Webb. Kathy Webb is the Executive Director of the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance and a City Director representing Ward 3 on the Little Rock City Board of Directors. Webb was elected to the Little Rock City Board in 2014 and was re-elected in 2018. She served as Vice Mayor in 2017 and 18. Webb became Executive Director of the Alliance in 2012, where she pursues her passion of providing support for those in need, as well as fighting for systemic change. In 2013, she received the National Advocate of the Year Leadership Award from Share Our Strength. She received the Brownie Ledbetter Civic Engagement Award from the Women's Foundation of Arkansas, the Champions for Children Visionary Award from Pulaski County Youth Services, and a Living Legend Award from Philander Smith College. In 2020, Webb was named by AMP, which is Arkansas Money in Politics, as one of the 25 top influencers in Arkansas. She graduated from Randolph-Macon Women's College with a BA in Political Science. In 2007, Webb attended senior executives in state and local government at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Hi, Director Webb, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lenny. It's great to be here, Karen.
Our second guest is Commissioner KK DeRosset. We heard from her a few weeks ago on the Transportation Team's radio show. Today, she's here to talk about sustainability and food security. KK has been working to address food insecurity in Little Rock since 2016. She moved to Little Rock to work as the Feeding America Child Hunger Corps member at the Arkansas Food Bank. In that position, she conducted a needs assessment for the food bank's 33 county service area. She was able to help the food bank host their first mobile food pantry in Arkansas and Helena, West Helena. In 2018, she began working at the Central Arkansas Library System as the Be Mighty Little Rock coordinator. Be Mighty is a citywide campaign that connects kids and teens to free after-school, weekend, and summer meals. In this position, KK promotes meal sites at libraries and beyond. She serves as a liaison between the Department of Human Services Child Nutrition Unit and federal meal sites, which are located at schools, nonprofits, and churches. Hi, KK, welcome back.
Hi, Lenny, thanks for having me.
Our third guest is Sagia Brown. Sagia is the Director of Out of Schools Programs at the Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance, working with the No Kid Hungry campaign here in Arkansas to ensure that children throughout the state have access to meals outside of school time. Ms. Brown previously served as AmeriCorps Vista leader focused on minority community health education and prevention, where she worked on addressing the gaps in access and equity in healthcare for children in Arkansas. She currently serves as a commissioner for the City of Little Rock's Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, and was appointed by Governor Mike Beebe and served as member of the Arkansas Legislative Task Force on reducing poverty and promoting economic opportunity. Hi, Sagia. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Lenny. Thank you so much for asking me.
All right. Well, thank you, Lenny. And I'm very much looking forward to having this conversation with our great guests. I want to start today's roundtable by learning a little bit about all of you. I want to ask, how did you get started in sustainability, especially in the issue of food insecurity? Director Webb, would you like to start?
Thanks, Karen. The Hunger Relief Alliance works hard in the area of gathering food that's left in the fields because there is a lot of fresh produce that is deemed not acceptable to sell, yet is perfectly good to eat. And that's one of our biggest programs, the Arkansas Gleaning Project, where we gather this produce and take it to food pantries to distribute. So it is one of the ways we marry the issue of food insecurity and sustainability.
All right. Thank you, Director Webb. KK, what about you?
Yeah, so I kind of got into food insecurity through community service. So in college, I was involved with both sustainability projects on campus, but also food insecurity projects. That included going to an organization called More Than a Meal that served hot meals to people in need on Tuesday nights. So just through my volunteer experience in college at the Oxford Food Pantry, I just got more awareness about the issue, and I moved to Fayetteville, Arkansas after that for grad school, and there were a lot of sustainability initiatives as well as food insecurity projects on campus, and luckily I found an opportunity where I could address both through the Razorback Food Recovery Program and the Full Circle Campus Food Pantry. And as a graduate assistant for those programs, I got to work with the students that coordinated all the volunteers. They were recovering all the leftover food from like the dining halls and taking it to homeless shelters in the area. So that was like really what got me interested in this work and is why I'm still doing it today.
Thank you, KK. We are very proud to have you at the commission as well. You do incredible work for the city. Zakia, what about you? How did you get interested in sustainability, especially in the issue of food insecurity?
My passion for addressing food insecurity started a little closer to home. I'm a Southern girl, Arkansas girl, born and bred. Grandparents have deep roots in Southeast Arkansas, and I always say that one of the things you first realize about Arkansas and the culture is that we essentially equate food with love. Someone has a baby, we bring food. Someone dies, we bring food. If there's a celebration, we bring food. And while my grandparents were definitely from the Arkansas Delta, the Mississippi Delta, and didn't have a lot, food and gardens is something that they were always willing to grow and share with their neighbors. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, from that vantage point of food essentially being equal to love, I just cannot imagine the point here, especially in the South, but in our nation, that we deny someone love. There is not a child that isn't worthy of love, and there's not a child that isn't worthy of food. And so I look at it a little more personally, of all the things that a child should have to worry about. Access to food should not be one of them.
Thank you, Zakia. Yeah, that I 100% agree with you. Many times we don't seem to see how food insecurity affects kids even more than grown-ups, and this creates this kind of like division already, or this self-belief that I'm not good enough, and many other issues unfold from that very sense of lack of belonging or of lack of worth. All right, well, my next question has to do a little bit with the pandemic and how this has impacted the food insecurity problem in the States. How do you think the pandemic has worsened the issue of food insecurity in Little Rock? Director Webb, let's start with you.
Thank you, Karen. Last year, for the first time, Arkansas and Pulaski County got back to a place with food insecurity where we actually had fewer people who were struggling than before the recession, which means it took us a whole decade to recover from the recession in terms of food insecurity. And this year we are seeing more people, first-time users of food pantry federal assistance than any time since the recession. Karen, since March, we expect that food insecurity will go up to about 31% among children by the end of the year in our community, in our state, and a full 6% or so increase among adults, which would mean about 22.5% adults struggling to access the food they need. And again, almost 1 in 3 children. While the stories are heartbreaking, the numbers are also very dire. The last number I'll share is that this means that over 160,000 Arkansans who had their food needs met in February no longer have their food needs met without some sort of assistance from outside sources.
Yeah, that's very sad statistics for sure. Zakia, what is your opinion? How do you think the pandemic has worsened the issue of food insecurity in Little Rock?
Well, as Kathy said, our numbers have increased dramatically with just the number of families that are in need of emergency food resources. But I would also like to take it from the vantage point, while economically it has worsened the access to food, overall, I feel like it has just exacerbated the gaps in food access that were already there. It's already highlighted and exacerbated problems that were already there from the beginning that we hadn't quite figured out how to sustainably address. And so as you were talking about kids and children are, that's my focus in the work that I do for the Alliance. When school was out, there was that moment where we had to address the fact that a lot of children are only guaranteed access to a meal with that breakfast and lunch at school. So when there is the need for school to abruptly close for an emergency like that, what do those children do? And how do their parents ensure that they have access to food themselves? And so overall, I would say, yes, the pandemic definitely highlighted and exacerbated the access, the lack of access, sustainable access to food that children and their families are experiencing here.
Thank you, Zakia. What about you, KK?
Yeah, so we have seen a huge increase in meal participation throughout the pandemic. Luckily, the library was able to continue its meal service with help from the Little Rock School District and from the Clinton Foundation and World Central Kitchen, but many other meal sponsors were not able to continue their meal service. And so that meant that the kids that were going to the different nonprofits for after-school programs in our city, they no longer received that free meal when they were there after school because those programs weren't operating. And so not only were kids missing out on the school meals, but the dinner and weekend meals that they get from other places around the community. And then we get into the different issues with when kids aren't at school, their parents are trying to find childcare if their parents are working. And so there's just a lot of different economic challenges that the pandemic has created for families, and that has an effect on their food security.
Thank you, KK. Yes, I think that's right. And this leads me to the next question, which is something that we often don't talk about, and it's the Black and brown people are disproportionately more affected by this issue than white people. And I would like to hear your opinion on this matter. Director Webb, would you like to start?
Thank you, Karen. To follow up on what Zakia said, the pandemic has exacerbated issues, and we have seen incredible suffering in Black and brown communities prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic, Black and brown people have been disproportionately impacted. And one of the reasons is that especially within the Latino community, there's a climate of fear, and folks have been afraid to access benefits that have been provided in some of the relief bills that have been passed. And in some cases, folks have been ineligible to access some of those benefits. We've had stories of people who have absolutely no food in their house, people who were working hard, 2 jobs, but a lot of those jobs in both communities were in construction and the service industry. And as those industries have been hard hit, people have been left without. And the Alliance and many other groups have acknowledged the role that systemic racism has played and continues to play in food insecurity. And we're committed to addressing that in terms of funding and programming moving forward, because it is very disproportionate.
Thank you, Director Webb. KK, what is your opinion?
Yeah, so through my work, I've definitely seen this issue, or that Black and brown people are disproportionately more affected by food insecurity than white people. And I believe that in our city, the history of our city and systemic racism with the interstate has also caused a greater divide between these populations. And so I think there's some stuff that we're doing to address this by creating more like food access in these areas through programs like USDA meal boxes or the free meal programs, trying to provide information in Spanish and also have Spanish speakers at the distributions.
Right.
But there's a lot more that we could be doing. And I don't necessarily have any ideas for like the perfect solution to address this, but I think awareness is like the first step.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, KK. Zakia, what's your opinion on this?
Well, Black and brown communities are disproportionately affected by this issue more. You have to look at it, or rather the way I look at it is that essentially hunger is a symptom. We see a lot of symptoms: lack of transportation, access to equity in healthcare, things as social determinants of health. And we see that when we look at a zip code is one of the biggest social determinants of health. When we look at all those that are symptoms, and poverty is, I will say, one of the biggest illnesses, if you will. And we have to look at systemic poverty and what props that system up. So as Kathy and KK both said, we have to address systemic racism. What are the inequities? What has allowed inequities to continue for generations? Why are our families subjected to generational poverty, and some families have access to generational wealth? These are the reasons why disproportionately Black and brown communities are affected more by all of these issues. But we have to address some of the root causes of those and be willing to be open and honest and try to come up with equitable and sustainable solutions to be able to be able to actually increase access to opportunity for all of the families that we're all working to serve.
Thank you, Zakia, for that. Well, earlier on the show, we discussed the chronic food waste that we have in America. Unfortunately, Arkansas is not an exception. What do you think communities could do to tackle both problems? Director Webb, would you like to start?
Thanks, Karen. One of the things that we do on a larger level, as I mentioned before, is the Arkansas Gleaning Program that tackles waste in the field of produce that's left over. The Alliance works with the 6 Feeding America food banks across the state, and most of those food banks have agreements with grocery stores to pick up food at the grocery stores that they don't want to sell, but that's still perfectly good and that can be used out in the community. We have a wonderful organization in North Little Rock called Potluck that receives donation from restaurants that prevents that food from being wasted. And we encourage individuals to think about things that they can do in terms of just takeout containers, wasting food themselves, cooking what they need, and encouraging the places that where they shop and where they eat to practice sustainability and do things to cut down on waste and support hunger relief organizations.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. Zakia, what do you think we could do as a community to tackle both problems?
Well, I'm just going to back up what Kathy said. I don't think that there is a lack of food. I think that we need to look at the barriers to accessing that food. Even with the programs that KK and I support, the out-of-school programs, the programs that the library supports, one of the biggest barriers is transportation. We have programs where there are meals available, there are things available, but if transportation is an issue and that food goes to waste, it's not the fact that there's not a need for it. It's just the fact that there is a vast difference between availability and accessibility. So I think once we address the barriers and actually make inroads to getting the food to the people who need it, that will go far in ending the chronic waste, the food waste problem that we have here in Arkansas and overall as a nation.
Thank you for sharing that. Keiki, what's your opinion?
Yeah, thanks so much. So this is something I'm extremely passionate about. I think that number one, we want to figure out how many people we're trying to serve and get that to be as accurate as possible. But when you're feeding people that are hungry, you don't really know how many people are going to show up for that free meal or to pick up that free box of fresh produce, and it could go bad if it's not distributed within a certain window of time. So Be Mighty Little Rock has worked with different nonprofits in the area where if we do have fresh food that is that we weren't able to serve that day and it won't be able to be used again, we try to send that somewhere like our house or From His Throne Ministries or even Potluck. We've worked with all of those organizations. So the first step is to try to figure out how many people you're serving to reduce waste on that end. But then when you do have waste, trying to feed it to people rather than just composting it or throwing it away, trying to repurpose it in a way that it can help others.
Yes, that's something that is always constantly in my mind. How do we can I buy just as much as I need? I feel like sometimes we want to have a refrigerator just full of food, whether we need it or not. But this behavior sometimes kind of perpetuates this problem of food waste without us even realizing it or without us meaning to do this. So awareness, I believe, is also one of the main issues that we can start creating when it comes to addressing both problems. All right, so my next question is, if someone in the audience is suffering from food insecurity, please share with them any type of help that there is for them in our community. Director Webb, would you like to start?
Thanks, Karen. One of the things that folks could do is we want to make sure that they are accessing SNAP benefits, that Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps. And we have a call center, 1-866-SNAP-ARK, that's SNAP ARK. And if they want to call that number, we can help them sign up for SNAP. And we can also tell them where food pantries are, where food distributions are. And I know that KK and Zakia both have additional things, and I'll let them share their information as well. So, That's all I'll do.
Sounds good. What about you, Sakia? What do you think the community, or what resources does the community have in regards to food insecurity?
So I will echo what Kathy said and also touch on our partnership with KK and the work she's doing with Central Arkansas Library System. For families, please check with your local school district, check with your local city, your local library, see if there are meal programs where they are offering meals for kids. There might be a food box distribution, which we do here in Central Arkansas at Southwest Community Center, while D. Brown Library is also a meal site. We do that at several other libraries and meal sites. Little Rock School District right now is offering meals as well as boxes to any child who is participating in virtual school, in the programming for virtual schools. There are some faith and community-based organizations that, in addition to running after-school programs or summer feeding programs, which is also important for us to look at those gaps when out of school time, how do kids access meals? Those faith and community-based programs are also offering pantry services for the entire family. So as Kathy said, they can reach out to me personally, call the Alliance. They can reach out to their local food bank. They can reach out to KK and she'll talk more about what Central Arkansas Library System is doing. But we can connect you to any of those resources.
Thank you, Sakia. What about you, KK?
Yeah, so Be Mighty Little Rock tries to connect families in need to food resources through federal meal programs. So if you go to BeMightyLittleRock.org and click on meals, you'll see a map with all the different free meal locations across our city. There's some sites that are in Little Rock, some are in North Little Rock and further. On the site, it lists the address of where they're serving meals and the days and times that meals are served. So that's for any kid that is 18 or younger. And then at our library sites, we have a few meals available for adults. So if there is an adult in need, you can go to the library at those times and ask for an adult meal. So the website is the best place to look, but you could also call me at 501-918-3016, and I'll try to figure out what site is closest to your house and give you some options for the weekdays, but also the weekends. And we also have social media. So our social media is Be Mighty Little Rock. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's very important information. One question that it just popped up in my head is while preparing for this show, I read a lot of information about how the elderly have been also very impacted by the pandemic. Many of them, as you all know, are at high risk to get infected by COVID-19 and potentially being a deadly virus for them. And it also kids are no longer being able to go to school, as a few of you shared. If someone on the audience wants to help, they are ready to provide some service to their community, where could they go? Director Webb, would you like to start?
Thank you. I'd be happy for people to call me at 501-258-1949 to find out ways that they can help. We had some, they can text FOOD at 877. Wait, I think we're missing one digit on that. I'll let Sakia do that. But we had 2 elementary school kids collect grocery cards this week that we will get to families. And if they can't get out and do the shopping, we've had volunteers who've gone out and purchased food and delivered it to people. So I'm happy to take calls at 501-258-1949 and plug people in.
Thank you. Sakia?
So all of the out-of-school feeding programs that I work to support are heavily volunteer-driven. I know the pandemic has shifted the way that people can volunteer and how we distribute food. I would encourage them to reach out to any of their local food pantries, see what the need is, see the best way for them to do it. If there is a specific area that they would like to volunteer in and they want to connect to the food bank, Central Arkansas Library System, which KK can speak more to, I know they have opportunities that are listed on their website for specific volunteer needs. But I think if you are interested in helping out, everything from donating money, which a lot of times people want to just donate food, depending on the need. You know, food is really great, but our families also need access to things that we don't think about, which is, you know, access to personal care, access to things for their children. With the holidays coming up, that's really important. So I would say, as Kathy said, grocery gift cards, Walmart gift cards, transportation, gas cards, things like that. Transportation, all of those things are barriers to our families accessing food. Volunteering to help deliver meals, volunteering to help serve meals, volunteering to help put meals together or deliver boxes. All of those things can be ways that you can help. They can reach out to me as well. I'm available at the Alliance. My number is 501-399-9999. They can also email me. That email is sbrown@arhungeralliance.org, and just let me know what area they're interested in, where they are in the state, or what they're interested in helping, and we'll connect them to the best resource for them to be able to volunteer or donate or put time or energy toward.
Wonderful. Keke, what about you? How can anyone who is interested in volunteering with the library or the programs that you help run can do?
Yeah, so we have volunteer opportunities at D. Brown Library Monday through Saturday, and every week we need volunteers at McMath Library on Saturday. So if you're interested in volunteering, just send me an email at kderossette@cals.org. And I'll send you a link to sign up to volunteer. Our volunteer sign up is also on the Be Mighty Little Rock website and social media pages. But those volunteer shifts are from 3:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday, and from 10:45 to 12:30 on Saturday. So we would love to have people volunteer with our programs. We have COVID procedures to make sure that our volunteers are safe, but also the people picking up meals are kept safe, and that we're not spreading the coronavirus during meal service. So we have all of those protocols in place to keep everyone safe. And we also do have a child nutrition fund at the library system. So if you're interested in donating to the Central Arkansas Library System Foundation, you can do that at cals.org, or you can call me at 501-918-3016.
All right, thank you, Keke. I think that was very important information. So if any of you listening to this show is interested in volunteering for the community, you had great tools for you to do so. All right, the last question of today's roundtable is, what do you think are important steps to decrease this problem, the problem of food insecurity in our community? If you could give some advice or suggestions, what would they be? Let's start with you, Director Webb.
Thank you. One of the things that we need to do is get folks who are listening to become advocates, because we can provide food boxes, we can provide meals, but what we really need to do is we need to change public policy so we can not make some of these things as needed as they are. And we have call-in days where we enlist our supporters to call our elected officials in Washington, D.C. Right now, we have a push on asking people to pick up the phone and call Senator Bozeman, Senator Cotton, Congressman Hill, to encourage them to increase SNAP benefits. So while we've got the volunteer opportunities that we've talked about, we really need people to become advocates to help change the policies that create the problem. And that you can do from the safety of your own home with a quick email or a phone call.
Yes, very true. Zakia, what about you? What do you think the community could do to help decrease this problem?
Once again, and I guess it's because of our alignment at work, I'm going to echo what Director Webb said, which is, you know, as I said earlier, hunger is a symptom. I do believe poverty is what I would say is the illness, and we have to discuss the policies and advocate for change in those things that make poverty something that that has sustained across generations. It is important to increase access to food. You know, we want to address food insecurity, but it can't always just be handing out food to a family. We need to find out what we can do to make that family sustainable, what we can do to address the issues so that it's not every month handing out a food box, but what does that family, what does that child need? So this is not something that they will always be trying to figure out, what do I do the next month? What do I do you know, at the end of this month? How do I handle this when school is out? So we need to address those things that have made poverty something that these families are dealing with on a daily basis, and figure out what we can do to address that so that it's not always about just increasing access to food.
Yes, that's an excellent advice. And KK, what about you?
Yeah, so I totally want to just piggyback off of what Zakia just said about how food insecurity is a symptom of poverty. So one of the most important ways that you can do something about this is by advocating for better policies, including a living wage. So if people are paid more and paid fairly, then they will have more options when it comes to their food, but also other issues like transportation and healthcare. So transportation is a huge issue for people that are living in poverty, and it is an issue in our community too. So just becoming an advocate, staying informed, and doing your part to address the issue in whatever way you can.
Yes, I think becoming an advocate and holding our leaders accountable, reaching out to them, letting them know what you see in your side of the community. If you are a Latina or Latino, showing what the Latino community is going through. If you're part of a community that you feel thinks is disenfranchised, being that voice that sometimes our communities don't have can be such a meaningful way to create change. And knowing and caring about this issue is probably one of the things that will help us decrease the problem in Little Rock and hopefully in the state. Well, the time has come to an end. I think we could probably talk about this very serious issue for hours, but unfortunately we have limited time. And so I want to thank all of you for spending this time with us and with the the Little Rock community. And hopefully we will be able to have a better and more positive conversation next year in regards to food insecurity. Thank you for your participation, Director Webb.
Thank you.
Bye, Zakia. Thank you for all you do and for participating with us today.
Thank you, Karen.
And thank you, KK.
Thanks, Karen. It was a great conversation, and thanks for all that you do for Little Rock as well.
Of course.
I hope you all learn from today's roundtable. Also, we have a great surprise for you. Samantha Statter will do a Zoom Cooking Matters demonstration class on January 14 from 12 to 12:30. She will share a recipe from our evidence-based series that teaches families how to shop and eat healthy on a budget. If you want to know more about this class, please send us an email to recycled@littlerock.gov. We will get you connected with the right people. Also, I want to share with you and with everyone that Turnip for Hunger is scheduled for Saturday, January 9th at 10 a.m. We will pick turnips at Western Hills Garden. Anyone who is interested in participating, you can send an email to mshope@arhungeralliance.org. I'm going to say it again. You can send an email to mshope@arhungeralliance.org. Well, our time together is coming to an end, but before I leave, I want to share a few sustainability tips with you all. These tips will not only help you save money, but also will help you decrease your food waste at home. As we saw today, food waste and food insecurity are problems that interchange. The first tip I want to share with you all tonight is buy things that you know you will eat and that you know how to cook. Remember that there is a difference between things that we want and things that we need. And learning how to differentiate them is very important. The second tip I want to give you tonight is learn how to preserve foods. If you grow a garden in the summer, there are many ways that you could use to preserve your vegetables, like canning, pickling, and through fermentation. An easy Google search will show you hundreds of websites with important information about this. All right, so we are going to talk about the Eco Challenge of the week. I want to challenge you to help a family in need. If you have $10 or $20 to spare, I invite you to buy a food gift card and drop it off at any of the library locations throughout the city. Please make sure that the gift card is put in an envelope and that you write on the envelope, attention, be mighty, KK, and this gift card will be given to her and she will make sure that this goes to a family in need. Muchas gracias a toda nuestra audiencia latina por escuchar nuestro programa y esperamos que la información que están aprendiendo con nosotros sea útil para todos ustedes. Los tips de sostenibilidad de esta semana tienen que ver con comida. Si vas a hacer compras, asegúrate que lo que estás comprando de verdad lo vayas a cocinar y que no va a terminar sentado en la nevera dañándose hasta el punto que lo tienes que tirar. Muchas veces nosotros compramos sin saber cómo cocinar las cosas o compramos más de la cuenta y no solo desperdiciamos dinero, sino que también desperdiciamos comida que otra familia podría utilizar. Well, I want to thank our guests and you, our listening audience, for being with us today. We know things are tough nowadays, but together we will make it through, y'all. If you have suggestions about subjects you want us to talk about or have any comments, please send us an email to recycled@littlerock.gov, or you can follow us on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram as SustainLR. You can hashtag LRSC, LRSH, UniteLR, and SustainLR. I want to wish everyone a great evening, and until next time, y'all.
You're listening to the Little Rock Sustainability Show. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, get Little Rock Sustainability information by going to the Sustain Little Rock Facebook page or the Sustainability section of littlerock.gov.